Good morning, everybody. Believe me, the last thing I wanted to do on a Monday morning is come on here and talk about OU 34, Texas 30, but we got to do it at some point. And you know what? 6:30 in the morning Central, that means it's time to get your horns up. Just like Zoe, Colby, and Ryan, their horns never go down. Our horns are up. It's time to talk about the games. How'd you guys do this weekend, Nash? How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm doing all right. A lot of people think I'm crying or pissed off or anything. No, doing fine. There's some issues that were shown on the tape, but at the end of the day, what a great game! It was just I said this right before the show. This was a top 5 Red River shootout. It really was a shootout, and you know what? Oh yeah, OU was better than I was giving them credit for. But at the end of the day, there wasn't. We had on multiple OU hosts, and not a single one was predicting a Texas loss. So I don't think many people saw this outside of the deepest of crimson shaded glasses wearing people.
Aaron, how are you
All right.
feeling this
It's
morning?
gonna be all right, Travis. Your vibes are
Yeah.
a little low right now. You're just
It's
a
like,
little too
it's like
somber.
someone
I
died,
mean,
man.
this was
No,
gonna
I'm
happen.
not. I am. I admit it.
Goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not happy.
I am doing very well. Like, I feel a little guilty because obviously, like, I'm very focused on the Diamondbacks right now, so like they're bringing me a lot of joy. So I feel guilty in that regard. But don't worry, I felt pain Saturday morning just like everyone else did. But yeah, man, we're still here talking sports on a Monday morning, so I'm doing good.
I got to give you credit. The Opinion Sports Show, you were this obvious Sooner fan. You were on here saying OU was better than we were giving them credit for. Props to you, my man. Congratulations. That was a hard fought win. Good for you. Now, having said that, here's the thing, guys, and we'll break down the game completely. But there was a perfect confluence of events that led to this loss for Texas and OU's win. OU and credit to OU because they played cleanly. They played a nearly perfect game, and they were in a position to capitalize at the end of the day. So credit to OU. They forced some mistakes. They capitalized on other mistakes that UT, did on their own. That UT self-inflicted UT wounds. But I to the Opinion Sports Show and all other Sooner fans out there, I still think if this game is played 10 times, Texas wins 7 or 8 of them. They lost the turnover battle 3-0, and OU still needed a last-minute drive to win the game. Now they did it; they took advantage of it, but that's the kind of margins we're talking about. When you lose the turnover battle 3-0, and yet you're still winning with 1:15 left in the game, I'm just saying you're probably a better team. You weren't better on that day. Texas was not better on Saturday, but OU was better on Saturday. I'm giving all the credit in the world. OU was better on Saturday, but I don't think, similar to what was the year 2018, 2019 when Texas under Charlie Strong, they finished the year 5-7, but they still beat OU. The better teams don't always win, and that didn't obviously. OU won, so all due credit to OU. Guys, I admit I didn't want to come. I'm still not ready to really talk about it, but here we are. We've got a show. We've got an obligation. Let's start with the first thing I want to talk about is this: the turnovers. Quinn Ewers came out shaky to begin the game. He had the interception on the first drive that led to a short field touchdown for OU to start the game.
Yeah.
Jaron Thompson dropped an interception, which led to 3 Sooner points. Then Texas failed to convert from first and goal from the 1. I mean, all of these things just like and some of that is credit to OU's line. Some of that is maybe that's the failure of Texas. I don't know, but that's what happened. What do y'all think? Am I off on this? I'm sure the Opinion Sports Show agrees that I'm off, but what do y'all think? This game gets played 10 times. How many times does Texas win?
I mean, I think that you're probably right. on this. I think OU obviously is a better team than we gave them credit for. But at the end of the day, there was multiple areas that I think there were some issues at Texas, like the Texas run defense. That they were majority of the time, not majority, half the time they looked like, hey, this is a run defense that we know, and then half the time they just look completely abandoned. And it's not like the previous weeks where I have the statistic that I showed where, hey, in the first 3 drives, we're loading up a ton of runs, and after that, it's just elite after that. It was like, hey, drive there, drive here, drive there. It was like up and down, up and down. But Quinn Ewers, man, he started off shaky, but he
came back.
Performed, man. And I want to say, honestly, the 2 things that I'm most upset about in that game are because I've gradually become more upset about this as like time has gone on and I've had more time to process it and think about like, oh my goodness, Quinn was having a day. He broke Colt McCoy's completion percent, not completion percentage, but a consecutive completion record. And honestly, you could argue that incompletion could have been a PI. So there's a chance that the consecutive completion should be still rolling from until the next week. But Quinn, to take the ball out of Quinn's hands and to put it in Jonathan Brooks, I'm it's no secret I'm a Jonathan Brooks truther here. But Quinn was having you cannot have a much better day. The only thing that you could do for Quinn Ewers after those interceptions and fumble was just to add more touchdowns onto the stat line, because he was, I think it was like 26 or 27 for 300 plus yards, 1 touchdown after the interceptions. So he certainly responded.
Yeah, were you talking about the 3rd and 9 play call there? When you said
I'm talking about the 3rd and 9. I understand the thought process of it. You want to get the ball, like, you don't want to risk an incompletion and stop the clock, right? You want to force OU to use the timeout. You take the field goal. Like, I'm fine with all that. But where I've like gradually gone into an issue is, look, Quinn didn't show you anything to say that he wasn't going to execute or complete that pass if you called the pass. And I think that when you're talking about 3rd and 9 and like Steve Sarkisian, his ability to scheme, people were upset about it. Like they were saying, Jeff Lebby, he's pulling a Steve Sarkisian right now. He's scheming. And Jeff Lebby did the damn thing. But Steve Sarkisian, he actually had some really nice play calls in that game. Like some really classic Steve Sarkisian, hey, this is just an excellently schemed play that is going to be very hard to defend. It just sucks.
Yeah, he had some nice calls throughout the game. I will say the script wasn't there again, and OU was very well prepared for the script, including that the slant that they jumped on Quinn's second pass of the game. That was, of all the turnovers, that was like kind of the only one that really was like really bad, because Quinn saw it and then he looked at it and then he still threw it, and then it was not there the whole time. Like the OU player jumped it from the beginning. Credit to him. They were ready for that on the script. Like they know they're going to go to that double slant play early, and they were all over that. That was the worst of the turnovers by far, in my opinion. Honestly, all 3 of the turnovers, like, we can say like, oh, the 3 turnovers, Texas is way better. I mean, but OU, like those were good plays on all 3 of the turnovers. They jumped the pick, and it was, that was
that was by far the best.
And the hit on Sanders was a very good hit. Like, that's not always going to be an interception. And then the fumble, you shouldn't fumble, but like that was a direct helmet to the football. That was also a nice play. So Aaron, I think you really have to give OU credit on all 3 of those turnovers. They played pretty well in Texas.
The only one I disagree with is the JT Sanders interception.
You just think he shouldn't have thrown it at all? I think that was the main.
No, I think
listen, they said on the broadcast, and I agree with this. They went back and showed Quinn's footwork, and it was off on that, causing him to be late on the throw. Had he hit the throw when he was supposed to hit the throw, it's an easy touchdown. And
even if he places it just a little bit better too,
his footwork gave OU time to close the gap, and that's what they did. And look, I don't want to say this I was about to say this is the best defense they faced, but Alabama's still the best defense Texas has faced.
OU played way better though. Watching the film back, OU
Well,
played a lot better.
yeah,
than
the
Alabama.
This is a
execution
rivalry
was
game.
better.
You got to expect that. You got to expect they're going to come out with their hair on fire, and I don't think Texas did come out with their hair on fire. You know, I don't think they even came into the game talking about weather the storm, whether they needed to be. Sark talks about wanting to deliver the blow. You know, everyone's going to give you your best shot. He wants them. They should have been ready to punch, and they weren't. They were in the passive mindset to start the game.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I had a lot of the same thoughts over the weekend. It was like they were kind of like preparing for like OU to jump all over them. It's like just like how about Texas jumps all over Oklahoma? You know, Quinn settled in great, like Nash talked about, and then the offense was there. I mean, you can't complain. I mean, turnovers and red zone offense are a huge deal, obviously, but like on the macro, the offense was very strong. Like I don't have too many concerns about that going forward. Majors getting hurt was an issue throughout the game. There was a couple times where we'll talk about tempo, but when Texas tried to go tempo and they just weren't really able to execute it, a lot of that is because you don't have your veteran center. It probably hurt in the red zone a little bit too, although, man, watching those red zone plays back, I mean, Oklahoma just out executed and both sides of the ball.
Well,
on both sides of the ball,
and
Oklahoma
listen,
was way more physical in the red zone.
Real quick on the red zone, on the first and goal, the 3 straight drive, that's been a problem going back to the spring game. When Texas was going up against their own defense in the spring game, they weren't able to convert those. Even when the obvious 1 yard rushing down on the goal line, they haven't been able to just punch that in and brutalize. And that was with Jake Majors. Now, granted, that was going up against the Texas offense, but you got to give the OU defense credit. They played that well. Yeah. I know Sark got stubborn on that. And it's like, frankly, I either wanted him not to do it 3 straight times, but then the 4th down call I really didn't love that either. You're giving it to your smallest guy he didn't really have any kind of motion. He didn't have anything to really create separation. You're just kind of giving it to your smallest receiver and expecting them to lunge in from the 1 yard line. It wasn't that was by far Sark's worst series of play calling.
I think here's the deal. I've watched specifically those plays back, and I think it's just it comes down to practice. We need to practice those plays more, the first 2 plays specifically, because T'Vondre Sweat, it's just the timing was off. If you go back and you watch that, T'Vondre Sweat absolutely just bulldozed some dude. But it's just the timing of the run. Like he just clears a giant hole, but there's enough time for number 10, I believe, is either linebacker or safety for Oklahoma, and he's able to come in and fill that gap that T'Vondre Sweat had just opened. And then now Jonathan Brooks, he's going running up there, and then he has to try and bounce it over to the Byron Murphy side. And then by then it's just too late, and it's just
I also thought Brooks was a little passive on the goal line.
Here's the deal. This is something that, like, I've said this time and time again. Like, I'm a Jonathan Brooks guy. Give the goal line carries to CJ Baxter. Baxter is the bigger, more physical back. Jonathan Brooks, it's not taking anything away from Jonathan Brooks. It's playing into the strengths. And then also on the Quinn Ewers fumble, I did want to mention
even better than Baxter. They should have handed the damn ball to Byron Murphy.
I want to
bullshit, and I would have. That was set up to give it to him.
Kip Lewis. Kip Lewis had a good game.
Yeah.
That was the number 10 was a number that you kept seeing. You kept hearing Kip Lewis's name being called out. But I did want to mention this on the Quinn Ewers fumble. He needs to spend some time with Caleb Longley and Troy Tulowitzki on how to slide, because goodness, if you're like, it doesn't matter if you're a quarterback, right? Your job, the best ability is availability, and if you get hurt on a play where you're, lunging forward with your shoulder, that's something that you got to knock, especially if you're a passing quarterback. That's just, you're putting unnecessary risk out there when you can just slide and. What are you losing? You're losing 2 or 3 yards, maybe. Who cares? You're safe. Pop right up. You stole the ball. There's just a ton of that's one thing that he needs to stop. Is I think he has a look. And if you actually remember, I had a tweet where I was showing like Quinn Ewers. He did this versus Kansas. He was running. He had the ball in his left hand, and then he goes and he just almost flips it, almost like a shortstop would during a double play. And it's just like that. He was getting way too confident carrying the ball.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, you can tell them the fumble. I mean, I was
Listen.
watching that red zone sequence. Like, that was the last thing I watched before we got on the show. I'm like 75% through my rewatch. I mean, my take on the goal line plays was like they just didn't get the push. I mean, there were one or two guys on a given play that executed, but overall,
Right.
Oklahoma just had the push. I mean, I don't think any of the running backs were going anywhere. Like, a couple guys executed the blocks, but like they didn't have the numbers because Oklahoma was selling out. Yeah, I mean, and then the screens weren't there all day. I know the screens are a big part of the offense because they like to stretch horizontally, but coming into the game, the screens were not going to work because Oklahoma is a very
that's something that we knew. Like this, there were multiple things that we knew. We knew Oklahoma, what they were going to do is like if there was one thing they were going to do defensively, they were going to get in that back. They were going to get behind that line of scrimmage. They were going to blow up some plays.
Well, yeah, they're secondary, like very physical. Yeah. They're very good at getting off blocks. Like, and the second play ran was like they're running screens where the lead blockers Adonai Mitchell. It's like that's not going to work. The red zone screen, yeah. I mean, I understand the thought process there. Like he's just trying to catch him off guard and hope Worthy can sneak in there for a yard, but
it was still not a great
either.
And the other thing too is the red zone offense. Like Texas out. This you heard Sark get really snarky about this the other day when he was asked about it. At the time, we were ranked 109th in the nation in red zone. Like getting the ball inside the end zone, scoring a touchdown in the red zone. This is nothing new to Texas fans. So if anything, this game has just confirmed what every other game has shown us already.
Absolutely,
this team needs to work on the red zone.
All of the warts that we pointed out throughout the season showed up on Saturday. All of them.
They reared their ugly heads.
And they haven't been a problem up until now. And by the way, I will say, I do want to give some kudos here in a second. But the last thing I really want to talk about from a negative point of view is Ryan Wantz's injury absolutely hurt. It absolutely hurt because Terrence Brooks had a horrible game.
Oh, I can't. No, I'm going to have to stop you on that. Terrence Brooks, I saw a completely different thing.
I saw him get burned multiple times. He was lagging behind multiple times. I don't think he had one or two good plays. I mean, and okay, he did have some good plays, but he also got burned quite a bit.
Think they got. I mean,
here's the other thing: is they're not the same cornerback. Like if Ryan Watts is healthy, you're still going to see.
I know they're not,
on the field.
But they
Manny Muhammad is the guy that is going to be taking over. It's just I don't know.
I know they're playing on different sides of the field, but it did force, Malik Muhammad. I didn't notice him all day, so I think he had a good game.
Terrence Brooks has. He gave up 3 receptions on 7 targets, one of 6 yards, one of 11 yards, and one of 19 yards. He had 11 total yards after the catch. 2 pass breakups. He had a great game. That's something. That was something the only reason why I'm pushing back on it so hard is because it was one of the biggest. Like that was to me when I was cutting up the film. That was one of the best bright spots that I saw. I was like, man, Terrence Brooks, he played well. He did the damn thing.
And I admit I haven't rewatched it. I haven't had the heart to go back and rewatch it. So maybe I'll stand down on that. I do want to get to some positive stuff though. And the first positive starts with Jonathan Brooks. I mean, Quinn Ewers, yes, but we've talked about how he settled in and had a great game. Jonathan Brooks, though, what did he end up with? 22 carries, 129 yards, and a touchdown. That's nearly 6 yards a carry.
From last year.
Do what?
The same stat line as Bijan from last year.
He had a great game. And I saw someone in the chat saying, Brooks should have been carrying the ball more. Well, it's hard when you're playing from behind. I don't fault the play, the way the game played out from that perspective. Texas did what they needed to do offensively. And as we mentioned, Quinn Ewers played great after the first half, after he started out with the 2 picks and the fumble. And I agree with Aaron. The fumble was a fantastic play on the defense. I thought the first interception was a very poor decision by
It was really bad. It was never there for like half a second.
It was not even close to being there, and he forced the ball. The second interception, I again put that on Quinn. I think he was slow, but it was good hit by Billy Bowman. Bowman showed up. Bowman showed up throughout the game. I thought he looked really good. But once you get past those things, 2 bad decisions, 1 fumble, which, honest God, it was a good hit, but fumbles are always kind of luck. Causing them and recovering them are always kind of lucky. It's kind of how the ball bounces. Apart from that, Quinn Ewers played great. Quinn was 31 of 37, 346 yards and a touchdown to go with it. That's a 160 rating. Quinn played more than well enough to win. Jonathan Brooks played more than well enough to win. I think there is a lot to look ahead to with this offense.
Well, I think that you can point to if we don't go out there. And now here's the deal. I understand this is almost like it's like a Schrodinger's last drive. Who knows what happens? It's like you don't know. There's no way to really predict what would happen. But I would have loved to see the Texas defense go out there and just play Oklahoma straight up and say, we're not going to be passive. We're not going to let these. And I will say this: that last drive is that's going to be a stinger for Derek Williams. I love Derek Williams, but he had some mistakes. There was the play where Drake Stoops was left wide open. That looked to be Derek Williams' responsibility. And Derek Williams got sucked up in coverage, or he got sucked up when he saw Dylan Gabriel pull the ball down. He said, "I'm gonna." And what he needs to have the mentality of is, if Dylan Gabriel takes off running and he gets 5-6 yards, who cares? Clock is still running. It's only 5-6 yards. End of the day, keep on playing.
And they didn't have any time.
You don't give up that 30-40 yard pass to Drake Stoops. And then after that, there's the play where he's trying to pass off the coverage to Jaron Thompson, and Jaron doesn't hear it. And you're in the OU half of the field. It's loud. And Jaron doesn't. This is ironically the one time that being loud is actually going to help an offense, because Jaron wasn't able to get that communication that, hey, I got to be responsible for this guy or whatever. And then basically guys left wide open. I think it was Anthony, and that's the end of the game. So you can easily point to Texas probably should have won the game. I mean, there's majority of the time, if you tell me, hey, the other team has 0 timeouts, they have 1 minute and 17 seconds left. I understand that it's college football, so the clock stops on the first down, but 1 minute, 17 seconds left. You should be able to, I'm going to trust this Texas defense to go out there and get me a win. And then when you go, the problem is, to me, when you go into prevent defense, it's all about a mentality thing. You're playing passive.
Yeah.
The mentality switches from, let's just stop this team. Let's not let them get a first down. Let's stop. Let's play defense, to, okay, now we can let up the first down. As long as they don't score, it's fine. Just kind of let off and play passive. And the biggest problem for me is that you can still play great defense while saying, hey, don't let guys get behind you.
And with the prevent, the thing was Texas was only up 3 points. So if you're going prevent up 3 with that much time left on the clock, you're pretty much saying we're good with going to overtime, because they had they had intention of stopping them, but you're not forcing any chaos with the 3-man pass rush when the 4-man, 5-man pass rush wasn't really getting home all day. So the whole end of the game was, that was obviously the most frustrating part. Texas was moving the ball really well some people worried about clock management stuff. I didn't really have an issue with the clock management when Texas had the ball in that last drive. I thought they were trying to go score a touchdown, which is what they should have been the whole time. They were moving the ball, man. For the first time, the whole game pretty much, or it was like this for some of the fourth quarter, but it looked like Oklahoma's defense was gassed, and Texas was moving the ball on that last drive. And I was thinking they're going to go down and they're going to score a touchdown with 30 seconds left, or they're going to kick a field goal with 10 seconds left, and they're going to win this game. The Oklahoma player gets injured. He goes down. That gives the Oklahoma defense a rest. Yeah, I'm assuming that was when the crowd was booing.
They called when the officials called the timeout. He popped up pretty quickly after they called that timeout.
Well, and if that
in
was
the stands,
strategy,
we let them hear it. We were booing pretty loud.
If that was strategy, which maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. that could have been the
Brilliant,
game, man, because
brilliant
they were
execution.
moving down the field, and then Oklahoma got the rest, and the next play was the sack, and Sark admitted the sack was what turned the play calling conservative, and that was the game because
And every
honestly,
team
I
does
would have
that,
loved
by
to
the
see
way.
them go
That's
for
game
it.
sports.
I know, but
Listen,
it was
real
tough.
quick, I want to address this, the Opinion Sports Show, just in case you think I'm putting any Sooners down. I'm not. Absolutely not. I had both Bothroyd and McCullough, along with Stutzman, on my preseason All Big 12 list when I went to the Big 12 Media Days and submitted that. I know OU has a lot of good defensive players. They brought in a lot of good defensive players. You have to give them credit, and I absolutely am giving OU all the credit in the world. I'm also giving Jonathan Brooks all the credit in the world. And if this game didn't do something to prove to you how good Jonathan Brooks is, I don't know what does. Yeah, he had 200 against Kansas, but 129 on Saturday was a hell of a game. And it would make me proud to have a Jonathan Brooks jersey hanging on my wall, similar to Nash. So if you were interested in getting any Elite Sports memorabilia products, including Jonathan Brooks jerseys, including JT Sanders, including Quinn Ewers, including Adonai Mitchell, they're all available right there. Just whip out your phone, scan it, go check out Elite Sports memorabilia. I promise you, it will be worth it. And if you're like me and you're still kind of bitter and it's, 7 a.m. on a Monday, and I think I could still use a drink, then you need to hit up Specs online or seek counseling, one or the other. But Specs is probably the cheaper way to go. Specs is a fantastic Texas born and bred company. There's a location right around the corner from you. I promise you. And if not, you can go Specs online or use the Specs app. They've got everything you're going to need for this upcoming weekend of football. UT's off, but there's still a lot of good college football to watch that will impact UT season the rest of the way. We're going to talk about that after the break. What's ahead for Texas? But first, check this out from Specs.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All righty, welcome back. Look, it is time to move ahead. It's time to move on from this game. It's time to look ahead to what's next. And that starts, first off, we'll talk about the playoff chances next. But first, we've got to look ahead to the rest of the Big 12. And just for your reference, this is what the Longhorns are facing coming up. They've got 6 games left on the schedule. They've got the bye week this week. Then they go on the road to Houston. Then they have BYU at home, Kansas State at home, followed by 2 back-to-back road trips to TCU and Iowa State. And then Texas Tech at home wraps out the schedule. So let me just real quick, knee-jerk reaction, both of you, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are your odds that Texas runs the table the rest of the way? 1 to 10, real quick, knee-jerk reaction. Aaron, go first.
Just for the regular season?
Yeah, Big 12. Out of those 6 games, the remaining Big 12 games, that they run the table.
Like an 8.
Okay. Nash?
Re-ask the question again. Sorry.
1 to 10. What are you giving it the chances of Texas running out the rest of the schedule, the Big 12 schedule, at Houston, BYU and Kansas State at home, at TCU, at Iowa State, Texas Tech at home? 1 to 10, what do you think are the odds Texas runs the table?
Somewhere between 9 and 10, 9.5. I mean, I'm not like this game didn't really shake my confidence up that much.
All right. The point I'm trying to get to is they've had their slip up. They have to run the table now to get to thank you. Whoever scanned the QR code, I love that because JB did look good. He's going to be good the rest of the season. So.
All 3 of those guys did good. Jahdae Barron had a great game. Not Terrence Brooks. Well, Terrence Brooks did, but Jonathan Brooks had a great game. T'Vondre Sweat, defensive line didn't have a great game. T'Vondre Sweat, that dude offensively too.
He's a man among boys.
And honestly, give him a carry. Give him a carry, man.
But, that's the point. They've got to run the table in order to reach the Big 12 championship game. And we came into the season, the goal wasn't really playoffs, right? The goal was they had to get to and win the Big 12 championship game. That's what we were talking about ahead of the season. Now, they played better than I think we expected, right? Well, kind of. I mean, Nash had them at 11-0 coming into the season. I had them at 11-1 coming into the season. So clearly we were expecting a big year. But the playoffs weren't really what we were talking about. It was Big 12. That's still available. That's still on the table. But they can't have any more craps in there. They can't have any more, and it can happen. Even Friday night, Kansas State went on the road to Stillwater and lost to an inferior Oklahoma State team, and they did it by turning the ball over. It's why I woke up Saturday morning and wrote on Orange Bloods, the way Texas loses this game is if they turn the ball over. It happens, and it can happen. Out of those games, Houston on the road, BYU, Kansas State at home, TCU on the road, Iowa State on the road, Texas Tech on the road. Aaron, which one of those games worries you the most? You said you were an 8, so it's not a slam dunk for you. Which of those games do you think could be the biggest trip game?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying at TCU for a while. But I really don't. I mean, all of those teams on the schedule are so bad. Like, my main thought Friday night and before the game Saturday was like, this conference is horrible. Like, you've got Kansas State going and losing at Oklahoma State, Baylor and Tech, the whole conference is really bad. My main thing is at TCU right now because the confidence that I had about this team, like going in and playing its B+ or an A game on the road and executing and being like fundamentally sound on the road, that was all coming from the Alabama game, and it didn't happen in this neutral site, spot in Oklahoma. I thought a lot of the same issues popped up. The tackling in the secondary was one thing that really stood out to me on film. Like, the tackling in the secondary had been very strong pretty much the whole season. And then watching this Oklahoma game back, it was not the case. That's something that stuck out to me on the road a couple times over the past couple of years. Turnovers, I think, are more likely to happen on the road. I know, maybe that wasn't the case up to this point, but in general. So, I mean, I'm always going to lean towards the road games, I would say, at TCU. But, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty soft schedule. But I don't think I agree with, this can still be you can change expectations. Like, yeah, before the season, everyone was just saying, win the Big 12, that's the goal. But once you beat Alabama, and with the schedule they had left, the expectations completely flip, which you should be able to do. Like, this is a playoff or bust type of season due to the way they started the season and due to how the schedule plays out, in my opinion.
And also, too, here's the other deal. Is I know fans are they're up in arms about this losing to OU. You never want to lose to OU. OU sucks, all that stuff, right? But I cannot reiterate how close and great of a game this was. Like, there are multiple people that are not Longhorn fans who are out there sitting there thinking that this Texas versus Oklahoma game was the best game played so far this year. And this is easily a scenario where if Texas is able to, if we run the table, and honestly, to me, the game that scares me the most is Texas Tech at home. That's the game that scares me the most. I'm not really scared. Outside of that, everything else is food. But if we run the table, and then if we beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, and it's a 12-1 season, and there's two 12-1 Texas versus Oklahoma team, I think it just comes down to how good does that championship game play out? Because this game right here, this was just such a close game. Like, I could see multiple scenarios where OU gets put in over Texas or Texas gets put in over OU, depending, because it was that close of a game.
I mean, if Texas beats them in the Big 12 title game, Texas will get in over OU because they'll have the conference championship and they'll have the Alabama win. So I think that would work itself out.
I don't know. I think it depends on how, because at the end of the day, this is something that I like about the college football playoff committee.
Well,
I know a lot of people don't like the bias.
Hold on. I don't want to jump ahead. I want to wrap up the Big 12 before we get to the playoffs. I've got it on the list. Hold on. We'll get there. Slow your roll, Nash. We'll get there. I promise. But the Big 12, there are trip-up games there. I've maintained all year. I think Kansas State is a better team than what they've showed. Again, they went to Stillwater, they turned the ball over, and they lost a game that they should have won.
They just lost to Oklahoma State. I'm not worried about
Yeah,
that.
I know they did, but what? Like Texas fans don't know what it's like to go into Stillwater and lose a game they should win. I mean, it happens.
No, I mean,
not against this Gundy team.
There's just so many, like, you can
bad
only say
team,
this about Kansas State so many times. Like, they've lost 2 games now. Like, I don't know.
And by the way, this is a damn good point from any game that ends up being close in the fourth quarter should scare you because of the Big 12 refs. It's a damn good point. Although, Opinion Sports Show, I know you're not on Orange. I would assume you're not on orangebloods.com, but I have been tracking the OU play call. I mean, the refereeing all year. And to date, I don't see any signs of a fix coming in. I see poor officiating, but that's been the norm in the Big 12 forever.
I think, honestly, what it comes down to is the refs are just incompetent in the.
That's exactly it. And you know what? When it comes to Big 12 and refereeing, that's almost always the case. I don't see
where it comes from is it comes from just a lack of accountability. When there's a mistake that happens, you don't ever see the Big 12 reprimand them or fine them or whatever. It's literally like the Big 12 will not unless it is of the highest order of magnitude of mistake, the Big 12 will literally not even acknowledge.
I agree. But listen, and that's not just a Big 12 issue. College football officiating in general is pretty poor. I mean, go talk to some Pac-12 fans. They'll tell you. You know what?
Give them some credit. It's hard.
OU and Texas are going to have plenty of gripes about the officiating in the SEC. I assure you, it's not going to be all sweet and roses. But getting back to the topic at hand, out of those 6 games, there are trip-up games that if Texas is not playing up to its full standard, they could lose. And the goal now has to be to run out the table and get to the Big 12 championship game. That's the only way that said, and I agree, Aaron, if that happens and they beat OU, and assuming OU gets there, and right now OU's schedule sets up pretty nicely too. Texas' schedule, I think, sets up pretty nicely. I think you guys are right on about 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there that Texas will run the table. That if Texas beats OU in the Big 12 championship game, the conference title, combined with the win over Alabama, combined with the fact that, the Red River rivalry is what it is, I think Texas gets in ahead of OU. I know you fans don't want to hear that, but plus recency bias. The team that loses the most recent game as opposed to the team that loses earlier in the season always is hurt more than the team that lost earlier in the season. Always, 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 always. Every team. That's not just a Texas OU thing. That's true across the board. Now let's get to the college football playoffs. There's 9 teams ahead of Texas in the AP poll right now, and you have to assume the college football playoff poll, when that comes out, it'll be fairly similar, right? Here's where the math gets tricky. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington and Oregon, Florida State, and OU are ahead of Texas. Now, let's just say, just for kicks and giggles, OU runs the table. I mean, Texas runs the table and beats OU in the Big 12 championship game, right? The only ranked Texas doesn't have any ranked opponents left on its schedule. OU only has Kansas left on the schedule. So one of those two feels like it's in a good position to finish the season with 1 loss. However, this is, again, the math gets tricky. Georgia has Tennessee and Ole Miss left. Those are good teams. They're not great teams. Assuming Georgia runs the table, which is entirely possible, and for all of you who are giving me crap for keeping Georgia number 1 in the Gailey poll, are you still feeling that way? They came out and looked good and beat the hell out of Kentucky this week. If they run the table, they're in. One of Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State is going to be in the playoffs. The winner of the Big 10 is going to be in the playoffs. And one of those other teams could only have 1 loss as well. The math starts to get tricky. You've got 2 spots locked up. If you assume the Pac-12 winner, likely Washington or Oregon, they play each other this week, but you have to assume one of them, if they win out or finish with 1 loss coming out of that conference, because there are a lot of ranked teams in the Pac-12, they're going to be in. Any winner of the Pac-12, if they're undefeated or only have 1 loss, is going to be in the college football playoffs. I promise you. That's 3 of the 4 spots. right? That means you've got to hope, if you're a Sooner fan or if you're a Longhorn fan, you've got to hope that Florida State does not run the table. Because Florida State, if they run the table and finish undefeated, they're in, and that's the 4 playoff spots gone. All right? That's why I'm saying one loss, your college football playoff hopes are not – there's plenty of years where one-loss teams make it and they don't have to sweat that much. A one-loss Texas or OU team needs to sweat this out. Florida State, by the way, has only Miami and Duke as ranked opponents left on its schedule. That's why this 14 playoff is, and I can't wait for the 12 team. The math is not on Texas and OU side here. It's not impossible, but the math is not great unless if OU finishes undefeated, they're in. If they get to the Big 12 championship game and win, they're in. But if you're a Texas fan, you need help. Frankly, you have to run the table completely, and you need help along the way to make the playoffs. That's what losing on Saturday did.
You've got to root against. Florida State's the main one. I agree with that. You've got to be rooting against all the Big Ten teams throughout, because even like a one-loss Big Ten team is potentially an issue. Even a one-loss Pac-12 team is potentially an issue. So there's a long list of teams that Texas now has to root against. Going back to the Big 12, the most annoying part of this now, we now have to pay attention to West Virginia games because Texas does not control its own destiny. Like, they actually have to root against Virginia.
I'm not worried about West Virginia.
But I had the same thought, and then I watched, and then I just remembered how bad everyone in the Big 12 is. I was like,
they are bad. I will grant you that, but West Virginia is not good either. And their schedule's not the easiest schedule. Now, granted, Texas is below West Virginia in standings right now, but they still have UCF, which is tricky. They still have OU in Norman. BYU is not the easiest game for them. Cincinnati is not the easiest game. I'm not at all worried about West Virginia.
Yeah, we need them to lose a non-OU game, though, because even then, there will be tiebreakers that I haven't looked up yet, but I don't know. That my main takeaway is I'm just annoyed that I have to pay attention to West Virginia now. It's not going to be fun.
Fair enough. No, but again, Florida State is a tricky. I'm convinced the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are a lock. If you're a Texas fan and you win out, you've got another thing that could help you, though, is if Georgia loses. If Alabama runs the table and wins the SEC championship, and Texas runs the table and wins the Big 12 championship, you'd have to think Texas would get the nod over Alabama, right? Because they didn't just beat Bama, they beat them in Tuscaloosa by 10 points.
If Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC title game?
If Alabama runs the table and is SEC champs.
Alabama would get in.
I think at the
I don't know how you can put Alabama in over Texas in that scenario.
Because they beat Georgia, I think.
And Texas beat the team that beat Georgia at their place, in their home. You can't just dismiss that because it happened early in the season.
I'm not dismissing. I'm just saying what I think would happen. I'm
saying
Bama runs
not
the table,
you, not you.
Yeah.
The collective you, the college football playoff committee, you cannot, and I don't think they will. I don't think they dismiss the heads-up win over Bama if Texas and Bama are both one-loss conference champs.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Nash, you're looking.
I wasn't jumping the gun earlier. I just want to go and say this, because this has nothing to do with the whole college football playoff, like Texas making the college football playoff, as far as like all the other people when you're talking about all these other teams that you want to break down. At the end of the day, I think that's for the bird. Like, until we get further into the season, we start to see you want to see some of the cannibalization from these conferences, but it's just going to be too hard to sit here and predict what one-loss team or what two has 2 losses or whatever. So until those things start to kind of become more clear, I don't really care that much about talking about the playoff. But what I was going to say is, when you get down to Texas versus Oklahoma, and because I was getting some push, you gave me some pushback on the team that wins the Big 12 championship is going to be the team that makes it into the playoff. I think that I kind of disagree, and the reason why I disagree is because what happens is the college football playoff now, the committee has bias, and a lot of people will say they have bias, and yes and no. One, a lot back in the day, like the big complaint, and Texas fans are we're no strangers to this complaint. The BCS standings screwed a lot of teams. There were a lot of good teams that never played in national championship games that got screwed out of just because the computer said, "Hey, this other team's better than you." Now, that's one thing that I think having a committee, depending on how the game goes in the Big 12 championship, the committee will look at that and go, okay, either Texas or Oklahoma needs to, if both teams have one loss, they're going to look at that and they're just going to say who played the better games across the collective whole of those two games. Which team played the better games and which team do we think is going to do better in the college football playoff? So Texas needs to win that game decisively, I think, in order to really, get that spot into the college football playoff above Oklahoma. Outside of that, everything else is just like it's no longer in our control, and that it is what it is. You got to win out from here.
I think if Texas wins out, they're in over OU. I just do. Even if it's a close game in the Big 12 championship, they had a tougher strength of schedule. They had the Red River came down to literally the final 15 seconds of the game. I think if Texas wins the Big 12 championship and they win the title, they're in over OU. The question again becomes, is there a spot available? Because if Georgia wins out, runs the table, they're in. If Florida State runs the table, they're in. I think whoever wins the Big 10 is in, and whoever wins the Pac-12 is probably in. There are a lot of good teams in the Pac-12.
There's way too many ifs on the table.
There is, and there's a lot of football left. There's 7-8 weeks of college football left until we get to this point. But some of those are not so crazy. One of the Big 10 is going to be in. One of Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State is going to be in. I promise you that. Georgia doesn't have the toughest schedule in the world left. They've got, by the way, Georgia kind of has to hope Bama does run the table and they can beat a one-loss Bama team in the SEC championship game. These aren't crazy scenarios if you start looking ahead.
I don't think it's a guarantee that one guy in the Big 10 is going to get in. I mean, you look at this.
I do.
State, hold on. Penn State has Oklahoma. They still have Ohio State and Michigan on the schedule. Those are two top four teams. Ohio State, they still have Penn State and Michigan on schedule, obviously. Right. All these teams have to play each other. There is a legit scenario.
But that's a three-way thing.
Similar it's a three-way thing, but there's a legit scenario where each of those teams could walk away 1 and 2 out of those games.
I think the most likely scenario is like the 2008 Big 12 where you had.
I understand there's the most likely, but I'm saying it's not a 100% given that the teams aren't going to cannibalize themselves. You can say the same thing about the Pac-12.
When was the last time
Florida State?
When was the last time a Big 10 champ didn't get in?
When was the last time there was a Big 10 champ with 2 losses?
You're not going to say that. I don't believe
here's the deal. It's possible. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's not a 100% given that Ohio State is going to walk out without 2 losses. It's not a 100% given that Michigan's going to walk out without 2 losses. These are all every single one of those Big 10 like that honestly, really, when you look at those 3 games, that's like almost like a college football playoff.
The issue with the Big 10 is they're all in the same division. Am I right? Is Penn State in the same division?
They are.
Yeah,
and that's the issue. You have to play each other in the championship game.
But that further complicates things for Texas and OU because you're more than likely going to have a one-loss team not playing in the Big 10 championship.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the bad part about it is they don't have to play each other again in the title game.
Yeah. So which is very similar to 2008 Big 12, where you had 3 teams with 1 loss, 2 weren't in the Big 12 championship game. It's a complicating factor, but the math is not great. That's all I'm trying to get at. I'm not telling you that this is definitely going to happen. I'm just telling you the odds aren't great. You need a lot of help along the way, unless you're OU, who controls their own destiny. OU, if they win out and go undefeated, they're in. Period. End of story. No ifs, ands, or buts. They're going to be in. Texas, if they win out, still needs help. They still need Florida State to stumble. They still probably need Georgia to stumble. They still probably need, the Pac-12 to cannibalize each other because it's such a deep conference. If it's only a one-loss Pac-12 champ that gets through that conference, they're going to be in.
And
They
West
don't.
Virginia.
They don't even need an undefeated team. They just need a one-loss team to get through that conference. They're gonna be in. There's only 4 spots, and they go quickly. So that's all I'm getting at.
I'm just saying this. I've watched some Penn State, and I think that Penn State could easily go up. Like, this is a scenario where there's 3 teams. They all play each other, and every single game between them is going to be a 50% coin flip. And I just, like, at the end of the day, it's not like Danny said in the chat. Maybe it's not a given. It's not high. I think it's not highly unlikely. I think it's unlikely that happens. But they're really good teams. Another thing, Boston, like, you look at that Boston College, Florida State. They've had some issues, man.
Yeah, that's
like.
the big
And
one too.
here's the deal. Like, I understand Duke and Miami are the 2 ranked teams that are left on their schedule, and I'm not sure what the seriousness of Riley Leonard's injury is. So if he's going to be back or whatever, I'm not sure what's happening with that.
I hope he is for his sake.
I think Syracuse is a better team than Boston College. Syracuse is certainly a team that's, like, there are 4 games that are upset watch for me on Florida, not upset watch, but upset watch because Florida State's so highly ranked. Syracuse, Duke, Miami, and Florida. Those 4 games I think have some serious potential for Boston College to lose. I think the Pac-12 is going to sneak one out. Sneak one. There's going to be. Here's the deal: is this year is so there's so much
It's a good year of college football.
This is there are teams are going to cannibalize each other.
It is a damn good year of college football. 2 quick things in the chat. Jerry Targaryen, upsets will happen. This is college football. I 100% agree with that. Which part of it is what makes this game so good. I'm absolutely more of a college football fan than NFL. Any day of the week, twice on Sunday. I enjoy watching NFL football. I love college football and all of it, not just Texas and the Big 12. And I love it all. I love college football, period. The other thing I wanted to give Bo props. He was in our chat all week last week. Welcome back to the show, Bo. I'm glad you jumped on. And I wanted to give you props. I can't help but notice we have a lot fewer viewers this Monday than we had last Monday, though. So clearly the sting is still out there for
All right, they'll be back. Just give people some time. Just give people time to hit. It'll be fine.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't have to be here.
And here's the deal. This is like to what I was saying. Each of the undefeated Pac-12 champions, or not Pac-12 champions, each of the potential Pac-12 champions that could walk out undefeated, they all play 5 top 20 teams.
I know they do
right now.
Yeah. They play each other. They each have USC. They each have Washington State. They each have Utah, and they each have Oregon State. All of those are tough games. But all I was saying is, I saw the headline. Is even a one-loss Pac-12 champ is going to be in because that conference is so deep, because it is so strong. It's truly sad. They saved their best year ever.
But I don't think it's a guarantee that I think we're putting too high of a guarantee on, and I know that guarantees doesn't have a grading value, but
nor did I say. Well, I did say a one-loss team is in.
You did with the Big Ten, but
okay.
At the end of the day, I just think there's way too many good teams that are going to be playing each other. Like, we have. I did say that Oklahoma and Texas, this was the best game played so far. This could end up being the 10th best game or 15th best game, like when you get down to the end of the year. There are so many good games that are left on the schedule. There's a ton of losses that are going to happen.
I'm excited about
Oregon and Washington. It's college football. Nothing like this is the most unpredictable sport out there.
I'm excited about Oregon and Washington this week. I think the week after is when we see Michigan, Penn State. Is that the week after, or Ohio State, Penn State? One of those. I feel like Penn State's got a big one coming up in like 2 weeks. There's a lot of good football to be played.
Yeah, it's all going to change. I think I love scoreboard watching, like scenarios, so I'm going to be tracking all of it. But I think for the people that don't love scoreboard watching in the scenarios as much, the immediate future, I think West Virginia and Florida State are the 2 teams to be rooting against in the immediate future. If like that, clarifies it anymore. The rest of it will work itself out. All those Big Ten teams and all the Pac-12 teams are going to have to play each other. We'll see how it works out. But yeah, right now I'm looking at West Virginia and I'm looking at Florida State because those are the
If
two
West
teams that
Virginia
really
goes
matter.
undefeated in the Big 12 and spoils our chances.
That's what, dude. I legitimately am worried about it.
Yeah, that's a legit. Like I talked about it last time on the show. Like, hey, I'm not going to go that far. Okay,
you know what? I like the comp actually.
He played well. I gotta be honest. Watching the film back, I thought the Texas defense didn't play great. I thought Gabriel had a pretty damn good game.
Well, here's the deal. It was on 3 plays was majority of his. He had 66 yards on. It was 66 yards. Yeah, 66 yards on 3 plays, and that was majority of his right. Like, and what it comes down to is Texas had the wide receivers covered, and the pass rush didn't get home, and then we all not. This is a common theme that Texas fans have seen over the last couple of years, and this is something that we got to fix. Hey, you have to fix this because you're not going to win games playing talented teams like Oklahoma doing this. You cannot give up your gap on the pass rush. You can't leave in space open for Dylan Gabriel to run through and turn what the defense has done is defense has put a great play. The cornerbacks playing good, getting the pass rush in, right? But now you've left him a wide open hole for him to run 11 yards, run another 11 yards, run 44 yards up the field. That's where majority of his production has come from.
And I will say I did not expect Texas to give up the rush. I told you guys on Thursday the wrinkle in the OU rushing game was going to be Dylan Gabriel, that they were going to unleash him like they haven't all year, and they did. I didn't expect Texas to give up that kind of yardage.
Well, and the reason why we didn't do a job as they did against Alabama and the edge, that was one of the
Kansas.
Well, the reason why is because we spied Milroe. We didn't spy Dylan Gabriel, and the reason why we didn't spy Dylan Gabriel is because that stat that I just said, majority of his rushing yards came in the final plays. So there was nothing to say, hey. He didn't give us anything until the fourth quarter that said, hey, we need to put in the last 2 drives. He didn't put anything out there. He didn't take off running where it was like, hey, we have to spy this guy. This is a major issue right now. It became a major issue in those last 2 drives, and it reared its ugly head.
You know what's a major issue is if you don't listen to Jay Ward and hit the like button. That's a major issue. We appreciate everyone joining this show. We appreciate, I promise you, each and every one of you joining in. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please do hit the like button. It does help us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've got some great shows coming up today, breaking down the rest of the OU-UT game, so you Sooner fans should stick around. We've got Anwar Richardson's old-fashioned sports talk show coming up next, followed by House Divided with Jeff Ketchum and Chad Hastings. Football with Friends this afternoon with Alex Dunlap, and then the Outsiders, the OB Outsiders tonight. See, I did remember this time. They are tonight. I'm sure they're going to have some great guest on. Maybe. They always have great guests because Chance Mock is able to get all his old teammates and friends on. That's a huge advantage I would love to have. I'm very jealous of that. But then again, I'm jealous I wasn't a UT quarterback back when I was younger too. So, life's not fair, huh? What do you say? Guys, we're on our way out, but quick thoughts on a scale of 1 to 10. Just let's leave with a little bit of, again, 1 to 10. How positive are you about UT the rest of the way?
Once they beat Alabama, my whole thing was make the playoffs. So, I think they're at a 4 as far as making the playoffs.
Okay. Nash? I'm still pretty positive. I
still think the team's very good. I just
here's the deal. I think that Texas is – you haven't seen a lot of teams, and really Texas is – we've almost skipped a step. If Texas were to just go into straight making the playoffs after having some down – after having 10 years of being down, we almost were skipping this step of – taking the next step of being just a really solid team that, just misses the cusp of the playoffs. But at the end of the day, I'm 1 loss. It was a 4-point loss to Oklahoma. We probably, had we played the defense correct, had we played legit defense, maybe we win. Probably should have won. I'm not that upset. I think the season's still pretty positive for me. So I'm going with a 9.
Sam, man, I know I did. I was just trying to hit it again. That was some great analysis, Nash. We got to work on our 1 to 10s. We got to get our quick, let's hit it and quit it. Hit it and forget it. I was trying to give a little positivity on the way out the door, Sam, man. That's all. I love the 9. I don't love Aaron's 4. I'm gonna mimic Nash's, and it was great analysis, Nash. I don't want to take that away from you or you or anyone else feel like I don't disagree with them. I do. So I'm gonna mimic Nash's 9. Texas is gonna be just fine. Everyone breathe deep. It'll be fine. OU fans, we'll see you again in December. We will have some great interviews on the shows that week. I promise you. We've already had Toby Rowland, the voice of the Sooners, say he would come back that week. I'm pretty sure we'll have Barry Trammell on again that week. We'll have some great interviews in December ahead of the Big 12 championship game. It's all going to be okay. Goose Fraba. Hey, for Nash and Aaron, I'm Travis Gailey. Hope you had a great show. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and have a great day.